Hi, welcome back to the Renaissance. We are going to cover in this video the intellectual concepts that emerged during the Renaissance. The last video talks about the changes in art that were going on in the 1500s, 14, 15, 1600s, but this is going to focus on the philosophy, essentially, of the Renaissance itself. So, as you can see, we've got two sections here that sort of go hand in hand. They're very similar. You could technically believe in one but not the other, but it was much more likely that as you were shifting towards humanism, you were also shifting towards secularism. So, on the one side, on the left here, we have humanism. And humanism is the belief in the individual and the study of the individual. You can see the word human here in the root word human there in the term humanism, but it's focusing on individual accomplishments, right? Now, this is a shift. This is not working. Individual. Sorry about that. Because prior to that, it was focused on the church. So that's the thing to remember. You can see in this graphic below that the church was the major focus during the Middle Ages. Everything was revolving around the Roman Catholic Church and Christianity. And this Renaissance movement out, when you have people like Dürer focusing on some religious themes, but you also have people like Da Vinci, who are studying astronomy and anatomy and doing things like the Mona Lisa. There's a shift away from a focus on all religious topics. So basically anything in school that you study technically can be humanist, but in particular they're studying individual accomplishments. So character studies, writing for entertainment, history, right? Of course, history, particularly of the classics of the Greeks and the Romans, that sort of thing. And a focus on the fact that as individuals we have rights and opinions and that sort of thing that need to be protected, because that's going to lead us into even a more dynamic shift in our government from absolute governments to more democracies or republics. The other side of that coin is secularism, which means worldly, right? It's a shift, again, away from the church. Just as humanism is a study of the individual, secularism is a study of basically literally anything that's non-religious, so history and math and science and all of it. So the difference, if you're keeping track, is secularism is all topics, and humanism is a focus specifically on individual achievement, right? And on our next slide, we have a couple of the key people in this particular vein. So the first one is Machiavelli. Machiavelli is Italian. He is a diplomat, so he worked for the Italian government, but he's also an author of the book called The Prince. And sometimes you hear things described as being very Machiavellian, where it's literally just an A-N on the end of his name, Machiavellian, which means it's very harsh, it's very strict. It's essentially the concept that a king can do whatever they want in order to maintain their power. So they can lie and cheat and murder and go back on treaties or whatever it is, as long as they're protecting their country. Because in Machiavelli's belief system, and the belief system of the vast majority of leaders in the 1500s, your sole purpose as a leader is to maintain your power and maintain your country's control. And so that's what he writes about. The end justifies the means is the big takeaway from The Prince, right? It doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter the means in which one does it. It matters how it ends up. So that's very Machiavellian. It's very anti-American, anti-democratic. Shakespeare, you've probably heard of him before, right? William Shakespeare, famous playwright. He is writing during the Renaissance. You can see that he's alive in the 1500s. He works for Queen Elizabeth, writes during Queen Elizabeth's time. And of course, he writes all kinds of things, Romeo and Juliet, and Othello, and Macbeth, and Hamlet, Taming of the Shrew, just tons and tons and tons of works that are crazy famous. He shapes the way English language works. He shapes the way theater is driven. He's producing for the masses, entertainment for the masses. So he's going to come out in that time frame. And then, oh, excuse me. It is 11 o'clock at night while I'm recording this one. So Erasmus, Desiderius Erasmus is a crazy name, right? Desiderius? Holy moly. He's Dutch, so he's from the Netherlands, and he is a humanist who reinterprets the Bible, because remember that at this point, the Bible isn't written in the languages you speak. You're not reading a Bible in English or in French or in Spanish. You're reading a Bible in Latin predominantly, or if you're in the Eastern Orthodox Church, you're reading that Bible in Greek, and that's it. They believed that in order to be the true word of God, it had to have been written in those languages, which is ironic since the original authors of the Bible, those who would have been taking down the things that Jesus said, or the story of Noah or whatever, they weren't speaking Greek or Latin necessarily. But anyway, I digress. Erasmus writes, in praise of folly, that's supposed to be an F, in praise of folly, where he used humor to explore the concepts of immorality. So he used characters and funny little scenarios to talk about the problems in the church, to talk about the nobility system and how you've got these people who are starving to death and these nobles with a lot of money, and how is that fair? All kinds of real key social issues come out of Erasmus's work, but he's one of the humanist authors of the time. All right, so that wraps up the Renaissance. If you have any questions, let me know. See you next time.